Like so many little girls, I was taught from a young age that it was just expected I would grow up and have children. I never even considered a child-free life because it was never presented as an option. When my daughter was young, she was abused by her biological father. The man I married, loved, trusted, and had built a life with betrayed me, betrayed her, and betrayed the very meaning of fatherhood. That trauma changed her forever.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, all the love in the world. So in today's video, there's a mom that shared her story about how she regrets motherhood because of what happened to her daughter and how what happened to her daughter affected their lives moving forward. Her husband, or her then husband, abused her child, molested her child, and then it caused a lot of trauma to the child, and the child became untrainable, unteachable, and she just shared her experience. So let's listen to her video and then we'll be right back to discuss it.
From the moment I became a mother, my life stopped belonging to me. My dreams, my choices, my freedom were gone. I wasn't myself anymore. I was mom, and that role consumed everything. I chose to have a baby. It wasn't forced on me. I knew it would be hard, but nobody talks about how much of yourself you lose in the process. Like so many little girls, I was taught from a young age that it was just expected I would grow up and have children. I never even considered a child-free life because it was never presented as an option. I had the best relationship with my mom, and I wanted that with my daughter. When I realized that would never be possible, I grieved that loss deeply. I wish I could say we dealt with normal circumstances, but when my daughter was young, she was abused by her biological father. The man I married, loved, trusted, and had built a life with betrayed me, betrayed her, and betrayed the very meaning of fatherhood. That trauma changed her forever. It stole her innocence, changed the way she saw love, and made life harder than any child should have to bear. It made raising her harder than any parent should have to bear. I raised her alone with the help from my mother. But as her behavior got worse, with running away, violent outbursts, and constant mental health crises, my mom could not keep up. I would leave work to pick her up and find my mother bruised and bleeding. One day, after another violent episode, I was so desperate I called the fire department to ask if it was possible to surrender an older child. They told me the program was only for newborns, but they would not turn away a child in need. Their tone was full of judgment. I hung up and cried until I could not breathe. We tried everything. Different therapies, different therapists, different psychiatrists, ER visits, hospital stays, residential treatment centers. Nothing truly helped, and I ended up buried in $30,000 in medical debt. I always loved her fiercely, but there were many moments I resented her for what my life had become, though I never let it show. Those feelings lived side by side, and they tore me apart with guilt, shame, and despair. I am still resentful of her, of motherhood, of a society that demands perfection from mothers while offering almost no real help, especially to parents raising children with serious mental illness. I am resentful of the expectations, the lack of resources, and the constant judgment. My daughter did not ask for this. Her life has been full of chaos and pain through no fault of her own, and her abuser still walks free despite her reporting the abuse. She is grown now and married. She wants kids of her own, and I have made sure she knows it is not an expectation, and she can choose to be child-free if she wants. I am happy she is happy, but I feel like I wasted my life on something that was not worth it. I could have been financially secure, content, and happy, living a quiet, cozy life. Instead, I endured years of chaos, despair, constant fighting, abuse, destruction, financial ruin, and legal trouble. If I could go back in time and change things, erase the abuse and the despair, I would still never choose to become a mother. I love her, but I regret motherhood.
So what stood out to me in that story is how much pressure society puts on mothers to be perfect, even in situations where the circumstances are completely overwhelming. When people talk about parenting here, they speak as if, love is enough. The love you have for your child will cover everything, will solve everything. They'll say things like, if you love your child enough, if you try hard enough, if you're patient enough, things will eventually work out. As if it's that simple. But real life is always not that simple. There's some situations where a parent might be dealing with trauma, mental health issues, financial issues, and the system would not provide the support that they actually need. In those situations, love does not magically fix everything. Another thing that stood out to me is how much responsibility end up falling on the parent that stays. When something terrible happens in a family, especially where abuse is involved, the person that caused the harm often disappears or escapes accountability, while the person who remains is left dealing with the aftermath for years. They are the ones trying to hold everything together, they are the ones trying to manage the emotional damage, behavioral struggles, the financial burdens, and the crisis that would come from unresolved trauma. People hardly talk about how very hard it is to raise a child with mental health struggles. The outside world often sees these behaviors, but not the history behind it. They see the instabilities, the chaos, and the first reaction is always judgment. People start asking, oh, why can't you control your child? Why can't you discipline your child properly? Why can't you fix the situation? But what many people don't understand is that trauma can change the way a person sees the world. When a child goes through something deeply damaging very early in life, it can affect their emotional development, it can affect their relationships and their sense of safety for years. Now, when the systems that are supposed to help families like this are facing these situations, when those systems are difficult to assess or completely inadequate, the parent now ends up carrying the burden alone. Not every parent has the financial resources or social support to navigate these kind of challenges without it affecting every area of their lives. It's very annoying that mothers are not given the space to admit that they are struggling when it comes to motherhood, especially if they show that they are struggling emotionally. If a mother shows tiredness, resentment, or regret, people automatically believe or say that she does not love her child. But I want people to understand that a person can still love their child deeply, but still grieve the life that they thought they would have had. They can care about their child and still feel overwhelmed by the circumstances that came with raising them. Regret does not always mean that somebody hates their child. Sometimes it means that they are finally being honest about the pain that they've been expected to hide just because society is uncomfortable hearing it. Another important thing that she mentioned that I loved was when she told her child that having children is a choice. That might sound simple, but it's a very powerful statement, especially because there are still many places where motherhood is treated like an obligation instead of a decision. Women are always told that becoming a mother is supposed to be the natural next step in life, something that everybody should want. But the actual truth is that raising a child is one of the biggest responsibilities that somebody can take on, and it changes every aspect of your life. Stories like this remind people that parenthood is responsibility, sacrifice, and sometimes dealing with situations that you never imagined will be part of your life. And while many people find joy and fulfillment in raising children, it's important to acknowledge that some parents would face challenges that push them to emotional and financial limits. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this topic. Think about the story. I just love to hear your thoughts in general. Do you think that it's right for her to regret her motherhood experience? Do you think that she's blaming her child for everything that happened? I'd love to hear your thoughts. My name is Benita once again. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, all the love in the world, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.